Hi, welcome to D-ConneXion TV. I'm Donzale Powell with D-Connex LLC. And today we're going to be talking about surety bonding. And I have Joe Catania with me with Anderson and Catania LLC. So if you would, go ahead and just kind of let people know who you are and give us a little bit of information about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Donzale. Again, I'm Joe Catania, president of Anderson and Catania Surety Services, ANC Surety, and so happy to be here. So basically, we're an agency, a brokerage firm, and most of our clients are contractors. We do various surety bonds, so license and permit. So a surety bond basically is a three-party arrangement.
Okay.
So contractor is the principal. They are bonded to an owner, whether it be the airport authority or a public entity, and the surety stands behind them. So
Okay.
a surety bond is a guarantee that they'll get the project done according to the contract. That's a performance bond, and a payment bond that they'll pay their suppliers and materials.
Okay, so kind of a check and balance to make sure that what's supposed to happen does happen is that financial guarantee that ensures that. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Because construction can be risky, and it basically protects taxpayers' money that job will be done.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. Now, is it only for construction, or are there different types of surety bonds?
There's so many different miscellaneous type of surety bonds, license and permit, the court bonds. We focus on contractors. That's probably about 75% of our business. We're so excited about being down here in Nashville. That's for sure. We're east of the Mississippi. We have clients all over the country, licensed in every state. But really excited about the opportunities down here.
So what's your core, I guess, your original location? I know that you're saying that now you've got all these different areas, but where are you centrally located?
So Wilmington, Delaware is our home office.
Mhm.
We also have a satellite office in North New Jersey. And we have a great producer out of the DC area that's really been our connection to you and to come down here, and Chris Smith. And we have another producer out in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Okay, great. So tell me a little bit about your role that you play within your organization. And I guess, what are some of your big picture ideas for Anderson and Catania?
Sure. I'm a president of the agency. I see my role as, I guess, the team leader. We have a team approach here. Obviously, with Chris meeting you and having a connection down here, he's our business developer. And, I'm going to support everything that you have here. So our role is we have 40 surety markets that we represent.
Wow.
So obviously it's taken a number of years to get that credibility and those relationships. So with that platform, to see some nice opportunities for small businesses down here, I think we can help with that and advise on how to get the maximized surety program.
So I'm curious, what made you even want to get into the bonding industry? How did you pick that out of all the things that there are to do?
Oh, you never heard of surety bonding? So obviously there's no major in college on surety. So I was an accounting major, and actually Seaboard Surety Company used to recruit from my college, Mount St. Mary's in Maryland, and that's how I started.
And how old is the company, and what would you say has changed with surety bonds or that environment over the years?
Sure. So Rich Anderson is my partner, mentor. He started RG Anderson in 1988. Okay, so long time. We formed Anderson and Catania Surety Services in 2014 as continuity. He's a little older, and that's what we tell our contractors: make sure you have a continuity plan. So we're practicing what we preach. So what has changed? Wow. Well, technology obviously has changed so much as far as efficiencies and what we can do. Obviously, bid bonds, some agencies or DOT and other city and state owners, you do it electronically. Another thing is just the litigious nature of construction. I think with contract forms, onerous language, I think that has changed so much, and just how trying to get some subcontractors paid and work through some of the jobs with the bigger GCs and construction management firms.
Okay, so when you say GCs, what's
General
a GC?
contractors.
General contractors, and then So you mentioned technology. So do you think that's been advantageous for you doing kind of your day-to-day work?
Oh,
Has it helped?
absolutely.
Okay.
You can do so much more.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah,
That's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure because
sure.
sometimes there's some areas where people aren't shy away from technology, and so just looking at how beneficial it might be for doing bonding. So I guess I want to hear a little bit more about um, the growth. I know you mentioned coming kind of into this Nashville or Tennessee market.
Sure.
So let's talk about. Um, Obviously, Nashville has been booming for a while, and I'm continuously telling people, "Hey, we're the it city," because that literally, when you see so many cranes in the air and all of the things that are going on here, it's kind of amazing to me because I'm a Nashville native and I can drive down the street and see something that I did not see 6 months ago. And it's just
Sure.
like, when did this get here?
Right.
So when you think about that type of growth, and it's been fairly steady for some years now,
Yes.
what were some of the things that kind of excited you about Nashville, and determining factors as far as expanding in this area?
Sure. Well, making an investment in you and Chris Smith has done, it's not a new area for us,
Right,
obviously,
right.
because he's done a great job in um, business development, a book of business, and really has a nice center of influence on, and that's part of what we do
Mhm.
as advocates, um, bringing value added as far as an advisor and recommending between CPAs to attorneys who we have connections with. Um, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it before, but I think my main phrase is we're in a comfortable business.
Mhm.
So making our clients feel comfortable with, obviously they're sharing a lot of confidential information,
Right.
and therefore we buy into their business plan, and we basically sell that to one of our marketing or surety companies.
So confidentiality is very important.
Yes,
Okay. And you mentioned, of course, you have a handle on some of their financial information, just making sure and able to take that information and then help with strategy based off of what they have. So kind of customizing, I
yes,
guess, so to speak, the route that might be best and giving them some options. Does that typically happen?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so tell me compared to the more northern areas, so keep your Delawares or New York, Washington, things like that. So compared to those areas which are close to where you actually live versus Nashville, any differences that you've noticed in whether it's culture, business environment, skill sets? Just let me know what you've seen
All
so
of
far.
the above. I'll just talk about, I guess, approach. I mean,
Uh-huh.
obviously in the Northeast, it's high pressure, high stress.
Hmm.
You have so many different variables with labor unions to, working in some of the tough cities, New York City, Philadelphia, as far as onerous bond language.
Hmm.
And I would just say it's just a lot more litigious up there.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Okay. So tell me when you talk about labor unions, what are some of the things that you all might deal with up there? I know I haven't heard much of labor unions here. Obviously, but how is that affecting your day-to-day business more in your northern areas?
Well, it's really our client. They have to, we'll just say they're an electrical contractor. They
Hmm.
have to
Hmm.
be signed up, especially with, very high profile jobs,
Okay.
because, there could be union strikes, so there's certain union jobs.
Hmm.
And it's just a different way. It's, you're bringing a worker out of the hall.
Hmm.
So he's not working possibly for your company all the time.
Okay.
I mean, they'll have consistent with that, but it's just a different way of um, labor and
Right.
run it. And that's,
So would you consider those areas to be more aggressive um, in how business is done?
yes,
Okay. And
very
can you
much.
kind of describe so in this market, does it seem more laid back? And what about skill set? So people knowing what sureties are there versus here, or knowing how to kind of navigate through that. Do you feel like they're more advanced, or just wondering
Well,
what
I
you
think
think?
it's just a different process of how the work is put out.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, uh, for me, and obviously with Chris, spent a lot of time here with you. It seems like, I mean, it's construction, so there's going to be some conflict,
Right.
but it just seems the culture a little more laid back than the Northeast.
Okay, well, they say we have our Southern
Yo,
charm,
I
so
like it. I like it.
so I can definitely see how it might be a little bit more relaxed here. Um, the growth is probably going to slow, start to push that to amp up to become more and more like those northern areas. It might do that, but yes, I can definitely see that. Now, as far as I guess skill gaps or possible education, just from what I've seen, I do think that this more southern, especially in Nashville, since that's what I've been able to kind of see the most, does have a little bit of the skill gaps as far as really needing more in depth information. I've seen a lot of the trainings that happen, bonding education that might happen, and not just bonding, it can be in other areas too. But a lot of times they get the 30,000 level view
Sure.
of some general information. You might get general information about bonding, so they might understand what you explained as far as this is what a surety is. So they get it, but not as much on the strategy. What are some of the things that could possibly be refined in order to get a company that's operating at X level, but really could be at Y in a relatively short amount of time if they took some certain actions.
Sure.
So, do you all help with? I know you mentioned the strategy, but you work closely with that person and responsive in order to be able to kind of help them navigate through that?
Absolutely. So depending on what level they are in their business, from starting out to maybe doing residential or smaller
Right.
jobs. I mean, obviously, surety bonds are geared toward the public. So
Mhm.
that also, if they're looking to grow, eventually they might have to get to that point to get that stream of revenue from, there's a lot of public work out there. So we are advisors. So when they're starting out, they might just have a local CPA, so we can help. And we obviously deal with a lot of construction-oriented CPAs, how that can help them, advise them as far as tax strategies or the different tax codes, and also help with their internal controls of how they do their bookkeeping.
Now, I believe it's a bonds only or company, correct?
Correct. We do no insurance.
And what are some of the bonuses of having a bonds only company versus someone that does maybe insurance or something else on the side?
So much in business. There's so many specialties, and I love having a niche because we
Right.
know what we know.
Right.
Obviously, we've done this for a long time, so it says a lot about what Rich Anderson started and what I've built on as far as the credibility and having. I don't think there's many agencies that have 40 surety markets to be able to place, any risk that might come up that's placeable. If there's if there's a way to do it, I think pretty strongly that, from Chris to our producers to me and Rich helping support that with the relationships we have with our underwriters, we could get it done.
So really having the options available. And I know you mentioned depending on whether it might be the size of the company or maybe some of their goals or things that they're looking at, really evaluating what they need. And I think that's really important, almost having that tailored fit. Hey, you're at X, your goal is Y. Let's sit down and let's talk about it. Let's figure out how we can get you to Y. And here's a realistic estimate on how long it would take to be able to get there. So yes, I think that's great. So tell me, what does success look like to you? Like, let's say that you're working with a firm and you want to bring some of those value adds that we kind of just talked about to make that company get from A to Z. What are some of the things that you feel like within your organization you are excellent at, and that really the customer feels that they feel that energy or they feel whatever that support is?
Yes. So I guess success to us is having a long-term relationship with a client, a contractor. And that means a lot to us when they will see us as an advisor. They'll call us on anything. I mean, they're having trouble on a job. They might need a consultant to help them do an offensive claim. So being that first call means a lot to us.
Mm-hmm.
We're not just a broker. We're there value added and helping any part of their business process.
Right. Now, the long term, I definitely think is important. We've talked on other shows as well of almost kind of like the ability when you provide excellent service, you have those repeat clients. So it's not transactional, just, oh, yeah, we can write a bond. Sure. Yeah. A lot of people could just write one, but really making sure, like I said, more that planning, more inclusiveness, more respect, really, of trying to really invest in someone to get them where it's not only are they successful, but they might be able to have more of a legacy than they would have ever been able to have before.
Sure.
Being able to unlock that. So you also touched on a little while ago some of the different areas that people might need. So when we're talking about how important is it for a company or firm to have a more specialized team? So you talked about construction. So how much access to relationships and resources is it for them to have that solid team? You mentioned like attorney, I think you said CPA. So
Sure.
what in your viewpoint, as far as a company that needs bonds, what areas do they kind of need to focus on to help them have a very solid plan for being able to obtain
Sure,
bonds?
sure. Well, having a professional surety agent's number one.
Absolutely.
As I mentioned, the CPA is very critical.
Hmm.
We try to tell our clients that, try to speak the construction language.
Hmm.
The financial statement is the underwriter's spec book. So what you're looking at, your contract, that's what they analyze,
Hmm.
and surety is credit. So that's what your program will be derived from. So it helps with getting together as the contractor grows with the CPA before year end to talk about projections and just getting ready for what can be expected for the next year.
Right. So you feel like it's worth the investment to have the more specialized, targeted supports in place. So, for instance, I think you mentioned a construction attorney versus just an attorney that does all kinds of things and maybe isn't as aware of some of the issues to
Sure.
look for that are in the construction industry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Overall experience. I mean,
Hmm.
again,
Hmm.
like we talked about before, that's construction is a specialty and a niche, and having all the team players know that area and have that area of expertise is critical.
Right. And it's definitely big business. So yeah, I think it's very important to try to have all of that together. So what would you think is the best time for a firm to engage um, a bonding professional? So for instance, would you consider this to be something that a business should do in its infancy stage? Let's say I decide I want to start a construction company and I'm ready to talk to a bonding agent. Or do you think that they need to get some performance under their belt?
Mhm.
They've worked a few jobs, been able to successfully complete them, and then reach out to a bonding consultant.
So they will definitely need to get some construction experience on their own. Unless they were at a bigger firm and had considerable experience and then wanted to go out on their own.
Okay,
You know
kind of
that,
transfer those skills.
but they have that experience.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, with surety and the way underwriters look at, I mean, it's the three C's: character, capacity, and
Credit.
credit.
I was about to say,
I'm
they
like,
need to
that's
have some decent credit, don't they?
it. So
So hold on, I'm just curious. You mentioned character. So a construction owner needs to have character. Like why does the bonding professional care about that?
that's one of the biggest things I look at, obviously
Mhm.
financially, but their characters stand behind the company
Okay. Okay.
because when things get tough, they're going to be it through the long haul and stick with it because there's going to be issues throughout their business.
Okay. So it
Through the
was
years.
character, credit, and what was the other one?
Capacity.
Capacity. So being able to work on the job, complete the job, being able to expand or grow larger. Kind of
Correct.
clarify.
So they've had the experience, so they can handle a different scope of a
Hmm.
job
Hmm. Hmm.
to, uh, just maybe travel a little bit for an owner or just
Right.
the overall territory, just
Okay.
comfortable with, yeah.
Kind of learning and expanding and being able to grow.
Yep.
Got you. So in the event, I guess just for someone at home, I want to make sure that they're clear. So in the event that a company with a performance bond, let's just say they need to, you mentioned that that means they need to perform, they need to be able to complete the job. Let's say they fail to complete the job. How can this impact a company? So let's say I have completed a few jobs, I did them successfully, but now, oops, something happens to where I don't. So, do you have any suggestions for how they can kind of begin to recover from something like that, or try to help themselves in that type of situation? Because I'm sure it could be sticky.
So that is one of the toughest situations. I would say to get myself, the surety professional, involved early, and obviously, we'll take in consideration what's going on and if we should bring the surety in at one point, because
Right.
you need to be proactive, get in front of the problem, because the worst case scenario, you don't want to see a default, because that'll be on your record, and it will be very difficult to get credit and bonding going forward.
Okay. Okay. So I guess for the small business, they have their oopsie. So you're basically saying be as transparent as possible, as quickly as possible,
Yes,
so that you have, like you said, with the whole specialized team, they can kind of help with coaching, I guess,
absolutely.
through it to the best of their ability. I
Yep.
mean, some things I understand. It is what it is, but still communicating.
We always want to have an upfront relationship,
Right.
some transparency, and we'll advise, tell me everything, and we'll
Right.
see, if there's a difficult situation, how we'll get around it.
And I think that's good to have somebody in your corner like that, that you don't have to be self-conscious. I know a lot of times, of course, firms might be hesitant only because they're thinking, what are they going to think? Or what if this got to the public? But having that confidentiality that we talked about earlier, that no matter what it is, at least I can have the conversation and try to figure this out instead of just being on my own and guessing and then turning out that my guess wasn't correct.
Sure.
Yeah, yep. So, in your opinion, what are some of the best, and then also some of the most challenging things that you see in Nashville? And it doesn't have to necessarily just be surety bonds, but if you could start off with surety bonds for
Well,
sure.
again, I feel really comfortable just with Chris Smith and Don Zalay having you on board. I mean, it's just knowing the players,
Right.
knowing the different, uh, city agencies to obviously the airport authority, how they do business, and just understanding, the competitors. So, like any new territory, just feel comfortable with the whole landscape.
All right. And then on just more of a, that's for work.
Sure.
And then just for you personally, what are some of the things that you like about Nashville? How often, have you been to Nashville, or is there anything that you're like, Nashville's okay, but I don't like that? I'm just curious, just for you personally, how you like it.
I love it.
Really?
This is like my fourth or fifth time.
Okay.
And to be able to have an office and a local team here,
Presence.
I love music. The food, the restaurants are fantastic, and it's always great to be. I mean, it just seems like an amazing growing city. I mean, there's a reason why it's growing and people want to be here. So it was a pretty easy decision for me and my agency to come here.
So yes, I've talked before about how as people come, a lot of times, of course, they're coming just to check out Nashville. They've heard about it. They've heard all the things. Go to Broadway and all of those things that to us as a native, we're very, very familiar with. But are there any things that you just say, hey, you know what? Every time I go to Nashville, I want to do this or I want to eat that. Are there any things that just are like the whole trip is worth it if I can do this?
Well, I need to stay for a long weekend or a week,
Okay.
and because I don't think it's mainly been business to truly take everything in. But I mean, between Grand Ole Opry and all the entertainment, I really need to experience
Just
that.
just be able to explore.
Yes.
Take time to explore. Okay, so with the surety bonding, just give me a little bit more, I guess, information. Again, I always like to look at the perspective of either someone that's completely not familiar with what bonding or the bonding industry is. And then also I like to take a look at if there's other businesses that are out there and interested in, hey, I might need to get myself established with bonding.
Sure.
Are there any thoughts that you might have on either giving people more information about how bonding works, or suggestions for businesses on what they might need to do in order to start trying to increase capacity? I know you mentioned that they need credit. Is there any type of credit in particular that's more important to others, or suggestions that you might give them to really make a strong case for themselves?
Sure. So the three C's that I met, it was capital. So it's
Capital,
capital,
got it.
character,
Okay.
capacity.
Mhm,
Obviously, it's credit, which we provide.
mhm.
But capital is key. I mean, to build up a pretty solid business. I mean, I
Right.
know starting out, there's tough times with
Mhm,
anything
mhm.
starting up. Um, a bank line,
Okay.
getting a relationship with the bank, because eventually you might need that in tough situations, not getting paid in a timely manner. Um, and we talked about, I guess, attorneys.
Right. So, how do you think the pandemic has affected your business or the bonding industry in general? Do you feel like it's been able to maintain? Has it picked up? Has it slowed down? What does that look like for you?
So construction has been essential, especially in
Mhm.
the Northeast.
Right.
So
Right.
quite honestly, the majority of our contractors have done well,
Okay. Okay.
which has helped with, and that's staying tuned with CPAs and attorneys. With it was all new with the PPP money
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
was, and now it's being forgiven. So it's been a great thing for contractors, restaurants. It's been tough,
Real
really
hard.
tough
Yeah.
all over. Um, but just staying in tune with that, because a lot of we talked about before about how it's changed in construction,
Hmm.
and I go back to the contracts to make sure they have read, you know, this is basically, I mean, it's a pandemic. So there's going to be delays on jobs. So make
Right.
sure you put the owner on notice, to follow up, and these contractors are very savvy, but as an advisor to make sure they're doing it.
Hmm.
Um, just for an example, in New York City, there was no new bids for school construction authority this
Wow.
whole year.
Ooh.
So, for a contractor that specializes in that, they're able to finish some other work, but
Right.
that's a big revenue stream.
Okay. And real quickly, right before we get ready to wrap up, are there any things that you just want to share? Any new programs or advantages that you might have, or future events, anything like that that you want to share?
Sure. I think once this pandemic is over,
Hmm.
because we are a relationship social industry, to get out and do some networking, maybe between a fundraiser or a
Right.
top golf scenario,
Hmm.
to get out and meet. I know Chris has been doing a great job as far as joining associations
Right.
and getting the word out.
Okay, okay, sounds good. Well, I definitely want to thank you for coming on today. I'm sure that you've helped a lot of people that might be either at home or at their office and watching and saying, not quite sure about surety bonding. It's not something that I think is just talked about
It's
as
not.
often. So I appreciate you coming on, and thank you so much for joining D-ConneXion TV. We will catch you next time.